2022 meeting of the Niskayuna Town Complete Streets Committee to order. I'll just quickly do a roll call here. Tess Healy is excused, is that right, Laura? Okay.
Yes.
And Paulina, I emailed with her earlier. Is she joining us? Or? I think she'll be along.
She's here. Yep, she's
Hi,
here.
Paulina, how are you? Carla Dougal is here. Hello, Carla. How are you today? I'm here. Elise Corbin, and since it's Regents Week, we'll all be happy that Elise Corbin, our student representative, is going to join us from the top of the meeting today. And we've gotten some emails from her on Google Maps. Andrew Millspa, hello, Andrew. Andrew is here with us today. And Catherine, hello, Catherine. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And Dart Stringer, is Dart out there with you? Is he in the?
Dart actually emailed me. He's not able to attend today either, so he's excused.
Okay, excused. And how about Jim Levy? Jim, not yet?
I haven't heard from Jim.
Okay, well, maybe he'll be along in a little bit. Okay, so we have Tess excused and we have Dart. Dart excused, or he's a maybe? We might see him. Or...
No, he's excused. He called me yesterday and said he wouldn't be able to make today.
Okay. Hi, Paulina. How are you? I already checked you off, but it's nice to see you. Okay, let's move along. We have the minutes from our December 10 meeting. Does anyone have a comment or anything they want to see changed in the minutes? I hope they've had a chance to take a look at them. If not, I'd like to move that we accept the minutes of our December 10 meeting. Looking for a second. Paulina offers a second. All in favor of accepting the December 10 meeting minutes, please hold your hand up. Okay, thank you so much. Those minutes are accepted. Okay, any old business? What would fall in the domain of old business, Laura? We've got a list of 20 things or more, right? Or should we just?
So the reason, we could take that off the agenda, but old business would be if you were doing a planning board recommendation and it was on there for you to make a recommendation, but you had existing questions, it would roll over into the next meeting under old business.
Okay. Well, I guess our 2022 goals is kind of a little bit of a mix of that. We at least briefly talked about them, that we wanted to work on them. So why don't we move on to goals for 2022? I took the goals that we had for 2021 and still a few things we hadn't finished by the end of the year, and I tried to update those a little bit, and I did get some comments from some of the members. Elise mentioned to me that we didn't have the Plum Street sidewalk. We're hopeful that the town board is going to do a sidewalk on Plum Street between Van Antwerp and the sidewalk to Hillside Elementary School. It's really about one house with some space where the school is, and it might have a little bit of a sidewalk right turn jag that would be on Nicholas Avenue. So students walking or faculty walking on Nicholas would be able to pick up the sidewalk. And also folks coming up Plum Street or coming down Van Antwerp would be able to walk on Plum on a sidewalk to get to Hillside Elementary. So we added that. Hello, Jim Levy. How are you today? Good to see you. Added that. Then I also took the liberty, when we may want to talk about it when we get there, is whether that strip of sidewalk is in the town budget. I'm hopeful that it is. We'll have to see how that unfolds. And then I also included in that goal is, a side path that would run on Cornelius from Ray Street down to Hillside Elementary. And then, having walked it, talked to the neighbors, I know I mentioned last meeting on the west side, I thought would be good. And Laura has said I think the estimate she gave me was maybe 50,000 on the Plum Street and maybe 285 or 300,000 on the side path. And there is a lot of support for the neighbors on that. So anyway, Catherine Kuzman asked me to kind of rearrange the goals a little bit to put some of the infrastructure ones up at the beginning, and I'm going to try to do that. And so if I have any more edits, I'll get those, and I'll resend the goals to the committee, and maybe we can adopt them at our next meeting if we have what we consider a final set. Just quickly, I'll, with your permission, go through these quickly. One is number one, we want to finish the survey, and that's some work I need to do. I have gotten tables, and I need to just kind of write a half a page on each of the questions. And Carla kindly has done some work on her question, which we'll get to. Two is we have to do our demonstration project. We've talked about Lexington Boulevard, so we can make that a topic area for down below. I think we had good success on our 2022 priority letters. We got good response back from the school district. We had a chance to give some input on that to the school district. The county is also, they're looking at Grand Boulevard. That's a good thing. They're, at least Rosendale Road is on the radar. We're talking about the crosswalks at Regent and Dean Street, and also St. Joseph's and River Road. So it appears that, you know, the county is, you know, listening to some of our input, and we're on the radar. Again, the school campus, improved bikeability. We gave the engineers from the school district some input. They've indicated they've got it. They asked us to meet with their engineers, and they are willing to meet again. And Jim Levy and Paulina Manzo are on our committee that we're hopeful are going to meet with the school district when they get a chance to do that meeting. We're going to talk some more about utility corridor trails in the town of Niskayuna. That's a good goal. The co-op block project, we're assuming that that's going to go out to bid, and maybe some work is going to be done on that. Maybe Laura will have more on that in our updates. But that's been 5 or 6 years in the making. We've given a lot of input. We're hopeful that the county is going to go out to bid on that, and work is going to get started. Source document on traffic calming examples. Paulina has been maintaining that. We have good examples. So if we get others, like maybe roundabouts with a tree planter in the middle, some other things that, you know, we see examples. We've done that so that citizens, planning board, town board members can see examples of traffic calming things. We're still pushing forward on the crosswalks. We're not at Regent, and also River Road and St. Joseph's. The county's had some concerns about those, which we could talk about later. Rosendale Road, again, I've been, you know, supporting this, really a side path that would go from Mayfair Drive, or actually from Rose Hill, all the way down to Elisha Kill Preserve. The county doing work in Applause in Rexford, I think, is an example of the county and Glenville being willing to do a project like this. And, you know, we need to do some work. I've kind of walked it. I've marked some obstacles on some yards. I'm working on an Excel spreadsheet that has the homes that are on there, and I'm looking up to get the correct homeowner. And then one of these days soon, I'll want to walk it again with maybe Jim Levy or Clark Henry or someone to revisit the obstacles, and then we'll have to decide what the next step is on that. Number 10, I put in the sidewalk on Plum and Van Antwerp. It's not on your list, but then number 11, I added, this is something I've been working with Clark Henry on, which is we want to get the side path completed on Hillside Avenue all the way from Providence down to Banker Avenue. Some spots that don't have it are the Army Reserve Center, National Grid, a couple apartment complexes that haven't done their segment. So I'm hopeful that all we need to do is send National Grid a letter and ask them to do their part. They work on a lot of pedestrian path projects, that they would do that out of their own budget. I'm hopeful that maybe the United States Army would be could find the money if we sent a letter, particularly if we asked our congressman for his assistance on getting that path paved. And then apartment complexes, there are a couple that haven't done it. I'm not sure how we would do that, whether, they could find money to do something, or we just have to find the money someplace else. And the nice thing about getting there, if we can get all the way to Banker Avenue, though, is you can take Banker Avenue to get to the town community center, to the town swimming pool. We also may be able to go on Ward Lane or continue down Hillside Avenue to get to the Mohawk Hudson bike path. So it's maybe 1/3 done. It has 1/3 of the segments, 2/3 are not there. And I'm all for let's draft a letter, ask the supervisor to send them out, and let's since I'm a New Yorker, let's ask some people if they'd be willing to do their segment. So that's on there. The signage, you folks all gave me some recommendations on our comments on the wayfinding plan that Schenectady Metroplex is doing for improved signage on the Mohawk Hudson bike path. We sent those along. Hopefully they will put some safety signs up that are kind of like the ones that Paulina has recommended. The town comp plan, the 2023 comp plan, the town, I believe, is going to get started working on that. It's every 10 years. And we would want to, if the comp plan committee is okay with the Complete Streets Committee offering a first draft of a revised Chapter 7 of the transportation chapter in the town plan, I think that would help them along, and it would give us a chance to offer some recommendations, or some of our recommendations to find their way into the town plan. So that's something we'd want to do. And then I have number 13 is just our website. We want to get our website up and have it be a resource place for traffic, bike safety things, our Complete Streets map, a location where people can offer comments that the Complete Streets Committee should see, or planning board or town board could see. We'll have the town board's Complete Streets policy and our current members out there, and that's something I'd like to do. And then the road safety guide, Paulina Manzo is working on that, and we want to get that out. So I guess I offer that. People had a chance to look at it. If anybody has some more written comments they want to send me, or they have another idea about something else we want to put on the goals. And obviously we won't get all these things done, but we want to have them there, and may even share them with town board. If they want to know, what are you folks working on, and what are you going to be working on in 2022, we could share that with them. So anyway, anybody have a thought on the goals?
It does seem like a long list. Do we want to prioritize it, or pick 2 or 3 that we really want to focus on this year? And then if an opportunity arises to work on another one, then we capitalize on that. Or do we want to create subcommittees to tackle some of them, or people are interested in pursuing 1 or 2 that they, spearhead some of them? Any thoughts?
I guess I kind of like having stuff on the list. We know that we're not going to get all this done. Some things are, if a town board or the county takes an interest in doing something, then, we'll probably put some energy into doing that. And like the priority letters, we sent them out, and the school district responded to us. So we did some things. We really didn't follow up very much with the state, but we probably wanted to send our letters to them. And I think the county's interested. And, our priority letters to the town, Plum Street was on there, so we got a bite on one of them. They may even take a look at Cornelius. And the town also and county are both interested in at least sending the letters on the school zones. So
Hey,
I
Bill?
guess, yes.
I actually heard that comment from 2 other people about the goals. So I would definitely think that it's good to keep all of them, but prioritize them, like Colleen was saying. And the other thing that I would suggest, because the tree council does the goals exercise every year, and it's really, I think, a great exercise. And even though we're not putting it on our website, I think it'd be a great idea to put our goals on our website, because sometimes people don't always understand what we're trying to accomplish by looking at the description of us on the website. So I think putting our goals is a great idea. But I think this is like a good backup document, but if you're going to do a goal document, it would probably be like one page with your top priorities on the top and then lists. And so, like, to Catherine's point, you would do infrastructure, like, goal would be infrastructure improvements throughout the town of Niskayuna to support like bicycles and pedestrians. And then you could have bullet points of those ones that you're just talking about. And then this can be like attached. If you would like, I could take what you did and put it in that kind of thing for you.
Sure. That'd be fine. I know, I mean, I'm certainly a big advocate of infrastructure goals and wanting to move those along. We saw in the survey stuff that Carla put together that there are people out there that are interested in some public education things, and that's kind of part of our demonstration projects too. So that's kind of, you know, helping people understand safe ways to get around the town. And so I guess I'm for doing both. I certainly am always putting the touch on our county representatives, our town board, anybody else that will listen to try to move infrastructure projects along. But the other things are good too. I mean, like, I haven't spent much time on the website, but I think it's a good thing, because you get people that want to know about us. They look at the website, and if we have like the safety thing that Pauline has worked hard, our safety document and some of our traffic calming things, they'd say, oh, there's some good resources here. I'd like to see what's going on. So
I think it helps if there's, you know, a point person on a topic too. And then also if we revisit these goals, like in 3 months or in 6 months, and that way we kind of see what progress has been made on them. And so also if we prioritize a couple of them, you know, we can look in 3 months and say, well, what steps are we taking to accomplish this goal in that time period? At least that's how I work. And I know like the business world works differently than the nonprofit world and then the community world. But for
I
me,
guess part of my response
head
is
works, and so it's really
get
hard for me to all this time that goes by where nothing happens. And so I want to help speed things along a little bit. So
Yeah. And I hear that. I feel that. As a matter of fact, I would hate for committee people to get discouraged and stop because we identify 3 priorities or some priorities, but sometimes the world is not listening to us. But, you know, if we've got, you know, 10 or 12 out there, you never know which one of these is going to get a bite. Like
sure,
Grand
I
Boulevard
totally
gets a bite.
understand that.
Plum Street gets a bite.
Right.
Rosendale Road might get a bite.
And we
We
don't
might
have to drop our priorities when we get a bite. I'm not saying we don't pursue them when the opportunity arises, but like in the meantime, we focus on something specific and try to push that thing forward as much as we can.
Well, that's why I actually
13
put-
things simultaneously.
put the priority letters still back on, which I was going to ask Laura to send out so that we do the same thing. Let's look at town, county, school, and state. Let's identify those 3 priorities. As a matter of fact, we could even decide we're going to do 2 priorities or 3. But your suggestion was identify the 3 priorities, communicate them, and then ask for a follow-up meeting. So, I mean, I think that's another vehicle that basically committee members recommended at the start of 2020 and 2021. And so if we'd like to revisit those to say, hey, town, for 2022, here's the Complete Streets top 3 priorities. Hey, county, here's our top 3 priorities for 2022 and really for the state and the school district. I mean, it's a vehicle we've used before, and to tell you the truth, I think it's been successful. And so if if you'd be okay with doing that, I mean, is that a way of us specifying some priorities for each of those groups and doing them going forward?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't have to be the priority, or we don't even have to limit it to 3. I mean, I'm just saying, let's identify a few
Yeah.
and pursue those.
Okay. No.
That's all. I mean, what do other people think? Are there any other opinions on that? Does anybody have something on that list that they're super passionate about, that they want to be the point person on, or that they see as something that they really want this group to pursue?
I agree with your thoughts, Paulina. I don't know that I have anything prioritized on top of my head at the moment, but I agree we should prioritize and focus. It's a lot, on the list.
Yep, I agree also. And I guess, for example, if we wanted to do like a demonstration project, maybe pick do we want it in May, June, July? If we put a deadline on when we want to do it, that might, spur some action on making sure we hit it.
Yeah, and I think that many of these projects that we have listed here, there's 14 now. We added Plum Street. I think a lot of them can be lumped together as, okay, these are our capital construction projects. Whether or not we want to have priorities within that, that's up for the group. But I don't know if that's necessarily important that we do that. But then, there's other planning focus type projects where there may be capital projects that come out of it. So I can see that lumping some of those together as well. So we may not have like 14 separate, but we can just kind of categorize it a little differently, I think. So the public has a better understanding of it, and some of the information that's in here in this document, it doesn't necessarily have to be in our list of priority projects. It's great for us, but I don't know if the public really cares about some of the information that's in here.
So what are a couple of categories you'd start us off with, Catherine?
Well, I definitely think the capital project, the capital infrastructure projects, and I think having a demonstration project is really, I think that's a focus. People want to see that, and that's going to get the most, I guess, bang for your buck if you have a demonstration project. So I would like to see that, and then go from there and have some of your planning focus projects.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure others have other ideas how they want it set up.
I know we're going to submit like a set list of 2 or 3 or 4, however many, but if one of them, if we get into one, turns out to be a lot longer term than we might have expected, like COVID makes it harder, and we could sort of put it on the back burner and try something else. This law does give us options for things to work on this year.
Yeah, so I'm just I can show it to you guys maybe. Just as like a thought. Oops, maybe. Okay. Like I have like a million windows open, so I don't know if it's working out, but let's try.
Well, Laura, would you like to try a draft for us based on kind of what you've heard, or?
Yeah, so I could. Can you guys see my tree council goals? Can you see them?
Yes.
It might be hard to read. So what they do is they set out primary goals, which I mean are kind of based on what the town board appointed them for. So planting trees, doing an inventory, creating a master plan, and doing public outreach. And then inside those, they just have short descriptions of things that they are working on, little projects that come and go, or some of them are more longstanding. Then they have like the ongoing responsibilities, which just like you guys have, you have to review subdivision plans and work with the planning board. In there, you might put in the updating of the comprehensive plan. And then they do also list their subcommittees that are working on specific projects. So like if you wanted to, we could use a model like this, or even make a slightly different model, because I like the idea of putting some timeframes in there. That is a good thing. And prioritizing stuff like that.
Okay. So we're going to revise our goals and see if we can condense this a bit, get it down, and we might have this out as a source document for ourselves, but We're going to condense this a bit, put it in some categories, have some infrastructure, demonstration project, maybe some other education things, and also maintaining some of our source documents like safe transit around the town and our traffic calming examples and some other things.
Yeah, so I can take what you had there and put it in a draft and circulate it, and then I also just put on our next meeting I'll put in the agenda packet the next meeting our priority letters and see what those were last year and if we want to change them or just resend them.
Okay, so Laura, if you'd be kind enough to, if you want to bite that off, to come up with a revised committee goals and send it out to us to look at. And if people have thoughts on Laura's document, we can maybe return some comments to her or whatever, and we'll try and adopt the goals at our meeting. And then we'll send out the priority letters also. Not that we'll necessarily have to adopt them at the 18th, but we should look at them to see, here's what we did. Do we have some things that maybe the state, they all stay the same or whatever, but we want to send one to the town, one to the county, one to the school district, one to the state. And we've said before that 10 items on it, they'll just put it in the box and nothing will ever happen. But 3 items is short enough. And if they are willing to give us a meeting, we've got a little something to talk about. And we now have Catherine with us. So when we go to meet with the state, we'll have an additional resource, and that'll be great.
So
Okay.
you're not omitting any goals, you're just reorganizing sort of?
Yeah, I
or-
mean, I think we can keep this as stuff we're all interested in, but I think Laura is gonna maybe try to do a 1-pager drawing from stuff we have here. And for instance, our traffic calming and our safety booklet, I mean, that might just be part of our continued public education thing. We'd have maybe a public education where we'd have a demonstration project, and we might reorganize some of these things. And then infrastructure, I mean, maybe we can put those in a category as Catherine has suggested, and we may or may not make progress on any one of them, depending on what the town board does or what the county does or what success we have in being a lobbyist for any of these projects. But at least they'll be there, and they'll be our priorities. You know me, I never get rid of anything. Old cars, old clothes, old newspapers, old friends. I'm like tar on your shoe or something like that. It just never goes away. All right. Anything else on 2022 goals before we move on? Anyone else have any further thoughts? Okay, thank you all for your input. On discussion items, let's move down to question 14, summary. At our last meeting, I asked Carla about, well, she had a big question, and I actually like the detail that's out there, but she kind of summarized what was 5 pages of information down to 1, and which I've already managed to misplace here.
That's okay, Bill. She did the work. Why don't you let her present it?
Yes, good
Okay.
idea. So, Carla,
Well, it looks like you even reorganized it a little bit yourself, like you actually, you renumbered things. I don't know if you did that on purpose, like.
no, you mean the goals, or no? Your sheet
Yeah.
is exactly what you sent me. I just
Okay, from what I had that I sent to you, it had like 7 goals, and I think it was, you had 1 through 3 and then 1 through 4 in what was in the document, but
That can sometimes come from a Word document, Carla, because when you put it into your computer, it'll just renumber it. So I
okay.
can show you. It's probably exactly the same, except the numbers changed just
I'm
by Word
comforted
document.
by this, Carla, because Word is, not only do they play games with me regularly, but they do it with other human beings, including you. So
Okay.
we have 7
Yeah.
items here, but go right ahead.
We use Open Office, so maybe in translation it kind of got messed up. But Yeah, they, so, let's see. I guess basically the first issue or the most discussed issue, people felt that we should add more pedestrian and bicycle routes. And that includes like the addition of more bike paths and sidewalks, more bike lanes and sharrows, and as well as like widened shoulders. And it was in that order. I think 39 respondents said we should have more bike paths and sidewalks. 18 people, more bike lanes and sharrows, and then 5 people asked for more widened shoulders. The second most mentioned topic was community education. So the 2 residents actually mentioned like safe driving campaigns as a means for educating the community. And one approach generally targeted the community and mentioned like two examples of communities that have implemented these safe driving campaigns. One was in Belmont, California, and one was in Long Beach. And the Long Beach, if you look at their like website, I mean, and their approach, they actually, there's a sort of derived from an approach used in Sweden for a model called like Vision Zero, where the objective is to reduce traffic deaths like to 0. And their website is actually, it's a great website in terms of you know, educating people on, you know, their resources for, you know, biking, pedestrian, like maps, and they have like a bike rack request form and such. So they actually have a great, just a whole like plan for addressing this. Another resident actually talked about like using the safe driving campaign at the high school level, where they actually learn, like they like teach the kids before they actually, you know, take driving lessons and such. The third issue was controlling speeding. They gave example, like they talked about police enforcement and use of speed monitors, more stop signs, lower speed limit, and the use of speed bumps. They also talked about police enforcement of general driving laws. And I mean, I listed those off as well in the thing. Add more crosswalks and enhancements to existing crosswalks, better snow removal and maintenance, and additional lighting on streets. So those were the 7, and sort of increasing in how they were mentioned, you know, where they were mentioned the most to the least. So that's
Okay. Anyone have a thought on what we learned from the survey? This was a survey that was done in March of 2021. And the question that Carla had was, if you have any additional thoughts on pedestrian and bicycle safety in the town, please provide them. So they were a series of open-ended responses that Carla read those over and tried to categorize into these responses.
Has this already been presented to the Niskayuna Town Board?
No. This is just an example of kind of what our report would look like on the survey, that we take each question and where we had cross-tabulated answers, we would show that table. And then where there were open-ended questions or answers, we would show those too. So you'd have the 13 or so questions that we had, or 15, whatever they were, where we have a crosstab table, we present that, and then we have a summary of the open-ended responses that we got. And so I sort of assigned it to myself to, take a look at the tables and to see what does the information this table tell me, write a little summary on that. So it would be basically getting a draft report out to the committee on the survey to look at. And then eventually it would be a report that we would submit to the town board. And I think that would be one of the strengths we said about this, that Jim's emphasized, that if we have things we want to request, if it's not just us getting stuff out of our back pocket, that it's based on results from the survey we did of town residents, it will strengthen our claims. So.
Right.
One of the items that's in here I thought was pretty interesting was snow removal. And I really myself don't know exactly when the town employees start on a snow removal machine on the sidewalks, whether the person that does that first has a snowplow route and they do their snowplow route, and they go back to the highway garage, get the sidewalk snow removal machine and start out. One thought I've had would be, suppose the town started removing snow off of the sidewalks at the same time that they start removing snow off the roads. So that if you had a big snowfall, obviously the county on, say, Knott Street would move the snow over to the side on the sidewalk where it would sit, and sometimes people walk on it and it gets squished down. But if you had somebody that came along at 4 or 5 or 6 in the morning, and even though the counties moved the snow to the sidewalk, they'd be moving that snow over to the yard, so that our sidewalks on Van Antwerp and Troy Road and Knott Street and all the other places where we have side paths and we have sidewalks, we'd hit them as soon as the snow fell. So
Bill, just to clarify, the town only clears state and county roads. I mean, all those roads that you just mentioned are the ones that the town does.
yes,
But it's actually the community's responsibility to clear a good chunk of the sidewalks in Niskayuna as well.
yes, that's true. I mean, it's up to the homeowner, but kind of the agreement that the town has had with state and county is, if you are willing to spend your money to build the sidewalk, then we will remove the snow. And so, I mean, we also have, some of the asphalt side paths that, we have those. But I guess my question is, would this committee want to encourage the town to start removal of sidewalk off sidewalks at the same time that they start removing the snow off the roads, rather than, say, removal of snow off the sidewalk having to wait half a day or a day until a driver has finished his regular route and hopped on a machine? So we don't have to decide that today. I'm just saying, pardon me?
Laura, didn't they buy a new sidewalk snow removal equipment just this year?
I mean, they definitely do have like multi-path sidewalk equipment that, to Bill's point, they bring out after they've done clearing the roads. It typically comes out a day or two after they've done clearing the roads. Yeah. And I don't know why that is specifically. I certainly don't think it would be bad, to recommend that, to support all modes of transportation, that, that be a priority. I don't know how much that we can make a difference there, but I mean, it's never a bad thing to recommend it.
Yeah, I don't know about the Niskayuna, but in my experience, it's usually a staffing issue. Just how many people they can get behind the wheel, driving the trucks and other things. And the sidewalks have traditionally, and I think just about every community, unless you're in a high traffic downtown area, they did typically take a second seat to the roads, which, I kind of understand, but it shouldn't be, honestly. But it's a tough one. It's a staffing issue. Whenever I've gone into another community and talked about adding new sidewalks and trails and things like that, the issue of snow removal always comes up. And the first thing that comes up is, do we have to remove it? And then if people decide that it needs to be removed, then it's a discussion of how. So it's a tough one for sure. So, but certainly it's not something, no reason not to try and see what we can do.
Yeah, they get calls if they don't clear the sidewalk. For sure, they do know that people like their sidewalks cleared. The one thing that I noticed is that these are the goals, right? Or they're sort of, well, they're the ideas that people have that they would want to see: more pedestrian bicycle routes and community education. And those are like our top two goals right there. So I think it's good that like the community's top two things that they want to see are pretty much what we work on all the time. But the other thing that I noticed is that number 3, control speeding, is police enforcement and stop signs. And that's kind of an educational thing that we're working on, because police enforcement and stop signs aren't really a great way to control speeding. So like, I mean, I think 3 goes right up into 2, which I thought was really interesting. But good job, guys, for aligning yourself with goals just naturally that the public wants to see.
Well, I mean, just a couple other things. We do have speed humps listed. I mean, one person did list that, so we're still trying to do a little public education with staff on the town board and the town of Niskuna by showing them the Mordella Drive information, and that's another thing we want to do, is get that written up and provide that to our town board. Well, this, in answer to your question, Paulina, this would be the kind of thing, if we write up the results from the survey, we'd have 15 questions or whatever we had, and we'd maybe have a page or so on each question, and it would be data that, you know, would support us in terms of our work on the committee, and maybe requests that we, you know, made to the town board. So anyway, thank you, Carla, on answering the question, a detailed question, and then, you know, doing a revision to it. So good stuff. Number 2, the complete streets map attached. Laura, what did we want to do on that?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that that was in our packet, because I think it's great, and actually anybody can access it right now. So I
Okay.
didn't know, like, at least if you wanted to talk about it, so people know that they can go there and check it out.
So my connection is terrible, but I'll do my best. So it's sort of a continuation of the paper maps that we all have that sort of outline the town of Niskuna and the proposed trail networks we want to include in the town infrastructure already, and what people can do with existing infrastructure to bike and walk around Niskuna. So the difference is that it sort of pinpoints different locations based on projects we're working on now. So for example, like Plum Street and Cornelius Ave, there would be a little pin on the map. It's a Google map, so it's digital, where you can open it and you can actually get Google Map directions there if you want to go and sort of scout out the area and do some of the work that we are trying to do for each project to get it done. So it's both a way to keep track of what we've got ongoing and what we've done in different places, and sort of how it corresponds to the different places we need to make more accessible according to our paper map. And it's also a way to make it easier to look at not only projects we're working on, but examples of things like demonstrations. And I think like Mordella Road is on there, which is an example of like traffic calming measures that we were talking about. So that's all it is.
Okay. So Elise, you see this as a tool to help us know about projects we're working on, where they are, but even someone else. I mean, I don't know if we would have this as part of our website, our complete streets website that would be out there, that a town resident could click on these. I mean, some of these are aspirational, they're goals. For instance, folks that live on Rosendale Road, I mean, some of them may not know that we're interested in a side path. They might not want a side path. And so we don't know if that's going to be a reality or not. We have some more homework to do, but I mean, we listed on there with a bubble, and it's somebody might think, wow, has this already been decided? Well, it hasn't. We just thought it would be a good idea. It would be a safe thing. And so does anyone else have a thought on this? Is this something that should be a resource available to the public, or just something that we should use for our own committee and for planning committees for the town of Niskuna to look at now to keep track.
We could always create a new category for the sort of haven't been decided yet, but we're sort of thinking of. So updated via resource for the if we want to be more less just suited to our needs.
Yep. Well, I think it's-
I mean, I would suggest, because some people like paper maps, but like a lot of the new generation is going to be more happy with a zooming Google map. So like, I think it's good to have both resources and be thoughtful to what we put on the map. But I would definitely think that would be a useful link that we could put on our website that, connects with a different range of people that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I'm more partial to things that are digital. I have a hard time storing and finding things that are paper. So
Oh, Paulina, I love paper.
I
I'm
know,
telling
you do.
I'll
You
bring
printed
over
all
a
that
new
stuff
vinyl
for
map.
me, and then I lost
Put that
it.
on your living room wall so you can sit there with a phone. You can find everything right there. As a matter of fact, while you're having dinner with your kids, it'll all be right there. It'll never be lost. It'll never go
I
away.
tend to just have stuff in the cloud, and then I know exactly where it is, and I can go. So I love stuff like this, Elise. I think this is great.
Okay. Well, I think it's a good idea to have the electronic one, and for people that still want, a paper one for the wall, or a vinyl one that they can fold up in the trunk, and even if it gets wet, it'll still be good to go. I'll probably still share them. And so, yeah, actually, if there's anybody out there that's got a paper map of our big map and you want the vinyl one, let me know, and I'll be happy to bring it over. So anyway, this is a good suggestion, and we really kind of have the teeter-totter right there. We've got this old guy, Bill, with the shiny head, driving around at night, handing out paper maps to everybody in town. And we have Elise, who's in high school, who's pushing electronics, and a lot of folks in the middle that are supportive of that because they've got stuff. And I do have an electronic scanner, though, so I'm making some progress. So, okay. How about if we move on to Powerline Trails research? And I want to thank Elise really for digging out some of the information on the trails that are there. As a matter of fact, Laura, can I ask you to pull up the one that's kind of got Iroquois Middle School, Rosendale? It's got this one right here that I think when I look at this, just before the meeting, that kind of we've thought about. There you go, back up one, I think, or maybe it's that one right there. These are letting us kind of move some east-west. I mean, if you think about Most Holy Redeemer Cemetery down here, this could be a path where you could get across, hopefully, Rosendale Road, make a turn, and get over to the Mohawk Hudson bike path. That even if if the power line continues on Troy Road, over by Pierce Road, or further on the way from Pierce Road to Console Road, that they're almost highways and byways that already exist in the town. That the trees have been cut down. There's a pathway there, and it's a transit route to get around the town. And I guess we do have the chapter out of Rails to Trails that shows a number of communities that have actually formed a partnership with a utility company to have trails underneath. And even though we may not have the money right now to do a paved trail, even if there are, pickup truck ruts or something like that, somebody's got a bike with knobby tires, they could still use them. And to me, it's just kind of strikes me as a resource sitting right under our noses here that we can use, that if we look at our big map and we think about how can we connect some other things together to get, and, you know, we've talked about kind of the east end of Troy Road. How can people get to the Mohawk Hudson bike path, or how can they, you know, even getting from Troy Road over to Rosendale Road or over to River Road or over to the Mohawk Hudson bike path, they offer some opportunities to do that. And we've had some folks volunteer to do some walking, but I guess I'm just sort of free associating a little bit here. I mean, some tasks that I kind of think, one is certainly what have other communities done? I mean, how do they get permission? Is there a contract between a town and a utility corridor that covers liability, or who's going to develop a trail? What's going to happen if somebody falls on their bike and gets hurt or something like that? And you know, if there is a trail like this that's going to go under a utility corridor, I mean, who's going to pay for that? You know, another thought I had was really, do we need our own volunteers? Some of the people that would like to put on their walking boots and get out, identify these corridors and look at our big complete streets map and think about, well, where would we want to get from A to B, and how could this utility corridor help us do that, so that we make some suggestions to that map. And so, I mean, I guess part of it is how do we get kind of a bigger map of where they are? Like, for instance, does this utility corridor stop at Troy Road, or does it continue from Troy Road to Console Road? So, you know, we'd want to look at the whole thing. And also, how have communities formed partnerships with the utilities to do these things? And so I mean, other people may have some other thoughts, but I guess I just sort of ask folks, what is the next step that we need to take to try and explore this and try to make it a resource for our town? Anyone?
You could always reach out to public relations with the utility.
Okay. In other words, we would, if East Greenbush or some other communities around have actually formed a partnership and done something, we could reach out to those folks to say, look, how'd you do this? Is there a written contract between the town and the utility, or you know, how did they get started? I guess would be one thought.
I think I was muted for a while there, but does it make sense to have a subcommittee just to work on this?
It does. And the people that are on the subcommittee so far are Catherine Kuzman, Carla, Elise, and Dart Strayer.
Okay.
And Andrew is a possibility too, I think. I was nibbling to see if he's interested at the top of the meeting. So it's Catherine. Dart Strayer volunteered at the last meeting to do some work. And Elise has already worked on preparing the maps. And Carla said she wouldn't mind walking one or two of the others just to kind of see where they go, or trying to do some work. I mean, to me, I think maybe the first thing would be for somebody to try to find, are there some maps? I mean, could you reach out to utility corridor to find out, you know, is there a big map that's got them all on there? And then with electronics, we could actually get the electronic copy of our complete streets map, and we could overlay that map with these utility corridors and put them in a nice color of some sort, so we know, well, here they are in the town of Niskuna, and here's where they go. And then really, when you got that overlay on our complete streets map, it would be starting to look at, well, how could we more efficiently get from A to B in the town, or by using these utility corridors. And then after that, I guess, I presume we'd have to, if we had a little plan, the first step before we did any reaching out would be to, would meet with our town board member, either highway or all of them, to say, look, Complete Streets Committee, we'd like to explore this. And we see some opportunity here to, tie different neighborhoods of our town together by using these corridors. And would they be okay if we try to learn some information about this? And then if we can find 3 or 4 examples of other communities and what kind of a contract they had or agreement they had, and then what might fit, what might our town board agree to. And I presume it's National Grid that has these. We'd have to hope that the utility corridors here are as progressive thinking as in other communities and would be willing to say, hey, we want to be good neighbors. We want to support biking and walking, and we're willing to partner with you to try to make some things happen. So those are just some thoughts I've had, and certainly I throw it open to anybody else on kind of getting started on something. Do you have another thought, Catherine, you'd like to share with
Well,
us?
the only thing I can think of is that perhaps reaching out to the Capital District Transportation Committee, because they have people on their bike ped that may be able to provide some insight and other examples. So, just reaching out to Sandy, I think that's
Okay.
a possibility as well.
So Bill, I hate to always be the voice of reason here, but I did reach out to someone who has dealt with this exact situation. We'll just say within the last couple of years, so I don't make it too specific. And to put it bluntly, it takes a lot of political will to get something like this done with utilities. The one that she worked on was very difficult, and it got done, and it was a priority location. So just, I hate to always be the one managing expectations, but I want to make sure we don't think that this is easy. It's a logical connection. I mean, utilizing these, I think, make a ton of sense. I think I may even have discussed it, when we looked at the apartments before, that we should be looking at the connection to the town park. Sorry, to the town park. But it will take a lot of political will, at the very least, to get these moving forward for real. Not to say we should look into them, but that's where it will head eventually.
What's the resistance on the other side, Jim? What's hard about it?
It's I didn't get the details.
Utility companies are really hard to work with. Like, they don't have good contacts. They don't have good systems. Railroads and National Grid, they're not regulated the same way that like businesses and governments are even regulated. So they don't have like initiative to like respond to you. If somebody complains about National Grid to whoever, nobody is like impacted in National Grid by like not responding to you. But I mean, I do think it's worth trying, but it's good to set expectations because utility companies are just hard. They don't have the same type of structure that we do.
Well, I got to wear my optimist hat. I go to the Democratic dinner every year. And on it is a statement from John Kennedy that many of these goals we articulate will not be done in the first 100 days, will not be done in the first 1,000 days. They may not even be done in the life of this administration. They may not even be done in the life of us people. But let's begin. It won't happen if we don't start somewhere. And
Absolutely. Totally agree.
If we have an overlay of the town, then what we can do is to drop back to say, okay, this one is a real critical, this link from here to here, and we start there. And
So Laura, is the Complete Streets map in GIS, or was that done some other way? Because I would think the utility corridors are actually going to be, in the GIS parcel database. If they're not a parcel themselves, they would be shown outside of the parcels, like utility right of ways and roads and things. So if we could drop the Complete Streets map and overlay it somehow, if it's in GIS on top of the parcel database, that would actually give us
let's call Mark Storty. He might have it, and he might be able to overlay it on our map.
Yeah, we have it. And I mean, Elise actually overlaid them. I mean, that's kind of what she did with her map. She identified the really big ones. So
Right, okay.
yeah, we can do that. We have the GIS map and can put
Yeah, But yeah, I just thought I heard Bill say, what are the extents of them? So I'm saying if it's in GIS, it should be easy to kind of overlay
Would
that.
Mark Storty have utility corridors?
Should.
And could he overlay them on the complete streets map?
I mean, it's possible. Like, if it's not a Sims layer, it's less likely. But I mean, Elise already identified a decent amount of them.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, they are identified. I guess the question was just, I thought I heard Bill say he wanted to know kind of the extent of the, like the width or length or whatever. So that was the only reason I was asking. But but they are certainly, they've been identified for the purposes of us, knowing what we're talking
well,
about.
I think, isn't that just digging that Elise has done? I don't know that we have a comprehensive overlay of utility corridors, the power grids, at least in Niskayuna. I think that would be a first step. So,
Yeah,
But-
let me look. I can look right now while you.
my suggestion is let's ask Mark Storty to help us, and he might be able to do it. And then he would be able to overlay them on our complete streets map and give a copy back to us.
Yeah.
And
If he can't do it, I have GIS. So if I got permission to use the files, I could do it if they're in, if they're already in GIS. But we can figure that out offline.
I think Clark and Laura have a GIS that's electronically supported that you can work on. Before we leave this, Catherine, just let me ask you, we have Dart, Catherine, Elise Corbin, and Carla. Do any of you folks want to kind of step forward as the chair of the utility corridor subcommittee, or do we have to have a chair? Well, we can think about it. How about Elise? Catherine, is that something you like to do, or is that being baptized too early? Matter of fact, we usually like getting fresh members of the committee.
Okay.
We dip them in acid right off the rip, and
Yeah, that's fine. I
Alright.
think I can do that.
okay. So we'll try and get you that map, and we have some folks. Both Carla and Andrew said I wouldn't mind putting on their high top boots and walking around. So if we've identified them on a map, we could walk them and see what's there, and at least make a start.
Sure.
Okay.
I think I mentioned at the beginning.
Elise, go ahead. Did you have a comment, Elise?
Sorry, my connection was really bad. I think I was a little slow there.
You-
My connection's been pretty bad, so I've been.
You are still interested in being on the corridors subcommittee?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I was speaking for something earlier, but I don't think it showed up till later because it's been so bad. Sorry.
Okay. Well, anybody else have anything they want to say on the corridors? And do we have enough of marching orders to get started? At least to get a map, and then Catherine, you've got our big map, so any one of us, we can kind of look at them, and if we see a connection. Obviously Jim is saying it takes a lot of work and a lot of will to get there, that we can't just sit down and pencil them in and suddenly people will be out there 90 days riding their bikes under the corridors, but
That's right.
we'll get started. Okay. Anything else on the corridors? Anything else anybody wants to say? Okay. Comments to Metroplex. This is just a wayfinding report. People gave me comments and I put them together, sent them to Metroplex. They seemed very receptive to getting them. I don't know if they had an avalanche of stuff. Maybe they did or they didn't. I know, Jim, who was the gentleman that was the former editorial page editor of the Gazette?
Art.
Pardon me?
Art Clayman.
Art Clayman, yes.
Psycho Schenectady. Yeah, they wrote a letter and I reached out to him to let him know that, this committee had drafted one, and his understanding was that Ray got a lot of comments from lots of different groups.
Good. Well, we offered our comments. So thank you to everyone for doing it. And I'm hopeful Metroplex is we'll adopt some of them and we'll use them. Planning department updates, Laura?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I keep muting all of you. There's a lot of feedback for some reason. I don't have too much. There were two things I wanted to tell you guys. Because I heard you talking about this with the goals. I do think that we hopefully will see some construction at the co-op, not Balltown area. So if I can get my hands on some plans and share them with you, I absolutely will. I just, to set expectations, we provided comments when they were doing them. If we get plans now, they may be plans that are out to bid, so they're not very changeable. But I will certainly share them with you as soon as I can. There may be little things that we can tweak, and like if they've forgotten bike racks or something, it's something that the town might be able to help with. So I'll get those to you if I can get them. And then
Before we leave the co-op, Laura,
Mhm.
is the county going to go out to bid? Do we know? Or
I believe so. If they're not out already, I think that they are going to go out to bid relatively soon on that, because I think that, construction would be planned for this summer, but I still don't actually know. But I mean, I think that they will, because I have done these projects. This is an 8-ship grant that goes through the federal government. It goes through DOT. The sponsor has to fill out a lot of stuff. They have their engineer that does it all. It goes to DOT, then it goes to the federal government. Then somebody doesn't like something, it goes back. But I think that it's closer than it ever has been. So, and I mean, because those approvals take so long, I know they thought they were going to do construction this year, and obviously, 2021, it didn't go through. But that's not that atypical of, of a federal highways program project. It just kind of happens sometimes. But I think that we should see some construction this year. So if I can get my hands on those plans, I will share them with you.
okay. And I did have a paper packet that I shared with everybody, but I will drop one off to Andrew and Catherine, who both joined the committee, and so you can kind of see some of the stuff that we've been looking at over the last 5 years on this project and kind of how it's changed.
Yeah, and like no matter what, you're gonna see more sidewalks, lighting, better crosswalks. So it's certainly going to be an improvement. We'll see what the final plan is when we get it.
Are we any closer to looking at a design for Clifton Park Road and Crescent Road? That little chip?
I have been bringing that forward because there's some interest sometimes at the planning board from different, people who are renting that complex. But right now, nothing's moving forward. The estimate to do that was $300,000 or more. So, the town that fiscally not in the budget right now, but there may be ways to leverage, like we've talked about, once those improvements go in, people like them, it's possible that we may be able to get more attention to it from Metroplex, or owners of the place may be able to kick in some. So I still have the final plan, and I'm bringing it, and I care about it a lot. But right
Can I
now,
ask on that before we leave it? If the county is doing the work right there and Metroplex is supporting a business district right here, would they be amenable to spending some money if it's cheaper to get it all done?
Yes, I asked. And one of the reasons that we did that engineering study was for that very reason, because possibly when the engineers are out there, the town may be able to take advantage of what, the contractor out there, to see if they can get them to do work without mobilizing and demobilizing. The county and that project cannot go off grid. So there's no way that they can spend money through this federal grant to the
Right,
side.
they can, but Metroplex can. Metroplex supporting a business district. If the town asks Metroplex to help them with this project, and the renters of the building and the town were willing to do something, it wouldn't be any county involvement. It would just be the town and Metroplex. But again, I'd say if it's a good project, let's at least ask them. I mean, the worst they can say
I
is
have asked them. I don't think that they're willing to put the money into it just yet. I think there was a lot of pushback for the first part, and until they see the results of the first part, they don't seem willing to put the money to the second part. But
Okay.
it doesn't mean that we have to give up on it. And like I said, there may be other ways to leverage improvements there over time. But and the other thing that's nice about it is we kind of have community census because we did a public hearing at the planning board on it, and we did some drawings. So we can take that drawing that had the most consensus, you know, and bring it forward. And we have done all that work. I mean, the town did invest $10,000 into figuring out what the best plan was for that area. So that makes it much more shovel ready than it was before.
And before we leave, I want to tell the members of the committee that if I get killed walking across that intersection, I want you to use that blood to make sure this project gets done. So,
Is there a way that we can leverage that
Yes.
project, maybe before it gets started, since they're putting in lights there for that sidewalk, that it either gets continued all the way down to Town Hall or wraps around the corner on Balltown Road, and we have some sort of unification, you know, so it looks like a downtown Niskayuna.
I think if we try to get more money now, it's kind of what Laura was saying, is that they'll dig in and say no. So, I mean, my view is if we can get them to spend the money they've already got now and they see something, then we can come back for a second bite to try to get them to do those things.
It is-
And
It
it's
is
a good
really
idea.
hard to add scope to federal projects.
Yeah.
It really is.
So, but I'm just saying, we look at what the lighting looks like so that we think that through, so that it's like poles that we can hang flower baskets from or flags from, so that if we want to continue it down Knott Street East to Town Hall, that they all look the same, so that there's some continuity there and it looks like a downtown. You know what I'm saying? So that
Yeah.
the lights in front of the co-op don't look different than the lights in front of ShopRite.
Yeah, we can look and see what they spec'd out for lights. And if there's I mean, I don't know.
I would say as a footnote to that, and forgive me for yapping on too much, Laura, but there is a planned development district that includes a co-op block, ShopRite, all the way down to CVS and all those, that what we really want is even for our town supervisor to say to Metroplex or whoever we're doing, if we adopt a light pole standard, it would be something we'd like to see used throughout the planned development district, which is kind of the point Paulina is making.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly.
Yeah, I think both planning board and architectural review board have brought that up. They brought it up when they were reviewing Ace Hardware, because Ace Hardware put some new lights along their line. Yeah, so it's definitely something that when we get those plans, we could take a look and see how ornamental they are, and you know, if it's something that could work for us, or we could ask if they can swap those things out.
Great.
Those are all asks. We don't really have that much power over it, but it's certainly worth looking at and asking if you know, if they're putting like the ugliest LED light fixture you could possibly imagine. It's certainly worth us going, thank you for putting this in, but can you change this? Yeah, you know, yeah.
Anything else on the CVS project, the townhouses?
Well, yeah, so that was the other thing I wanted to bring up to you guys. That did get denied by the zoning board. So at this point in time, they, you know, have a couple options, but can't pursue further approvals. And so obviously, if they're not pursuing the further approvals for the plan that was presented to you guys, this, you know, it was their funds that were going to leverage that sidewalk. So I would say that I don't think that we'll see that in the near future for the time being, just based on the approval process that they have to go through. They would have to make some changes to the plans, and then they could return, or they may withdraw, or they could do single family homes. But right now, that project has been denied.
Do you know why the zoning board said no, thank you? Or
I mean, the zoning board criteria for review are quite different than what the planning board and the complete streets committee looked at. And I think a lot of it was 54 area variances would be the highest number of area variances that have ever been granted to a project in the town of Niskayuna. So they wanted to see a more reduction in the variances. I'm putting my own words in their mouth. I don't think they objected very much to the lot line. between the townhomes. And I think that they, you can see the community improvements, but like you guys and the planning board balance, we're getting a sidewalk on Van Antwerp, we're getting a pedestrian connection between Van Antwerp. Those are the things that you guys balance, with, but the zoning board is looking at area variances, and their criteria for area variances really doesn't include so anyway, it's just different what they look at.
Okay.
If something changes, I'll let you know. And if we do get a new plan, I'll obviously bring it back for your comment right away. The biggest loss to Complete Streets is that they were going to put a block along Van Antwerp, which is going to be nice. So.
Laura said that she'd send our the 2021 priority letters that we sent to town, county, school district, and state. So when you get those, I'd like you to take a look at them and say, do we want to see these same priorities going forward, or do we want to change some of them? And so I'd like to ask folks on the committee to do that when you get them, and then we can have a discussion on February the 18th about what our top 3 priorities for each of those bodies are. We're going to be part of our homework for our next meeting. Anything else that anyone wants to say concerning Complete Streets while we're here together? Anything else?
I'm just going to ask, regarding the survey, are the results of the survey, are they going to be published and available to the public at some point? I only ask that because, once you do present a survey to the public, they want to see what the results are. I think it would be nice for them to have some kind of synopsis of
Yes.
what the rest of the community is saying.
Yes. And it would be fair for you to say, Catherine to say, hey, Bill, when are you going to get this survey done? And I've got it with me, and I'm going to work on it. And I think the goal would be just to sit down and do some writing on the replies we got to each question, write that up. And I think our goal is to have a report that summarizes what we learned in the survey that would be available to the public. And, it wouldn't have specific things. Specific people reporting in, but we might have one page that looks kind of like the one that Carla did for us here, but somebody else might say, oh, on these roads where people want additional pedestrian, that might be something that's in an appendix, because they'd want to see, the town board might say, well, what roads do people want to see something more on? Is it Rosendale? Is it Troy Road? For instance, people might say, you can't get across Troy Road now, so we need a crosswalk there. You see some of those specific things. So that's an assignment that I need to work on, and I believe our goal is a public report. So.
There was also an article in the paper today. Did you see the one on how Buttigieg wants to make roads safer, and is like $5 billion in grants for embracing safer road design, such as dedicated bike and bus lanes, better lighting and crosswalks, and lowering speed limits, and also like pilot programs for to study and promote greater use of speed cameras, which we've talked about. But that was just in the paper today with the Associated Press. Yeah.
Would you save that, Carla? I don't
Yeah.
have the local paper today, but I don't know if you have any way to scan it. I'd love to read it, but I can look for it in the Associated Press to try to get it, or if there's a link, maybe you
I
can
can probably send, I think I can send it to at least one person, maybe everyone. I don't know. I can try to send that.
Yeah, that'd be great. If we can, I feel like, hey, the interest rates, they're going to be going up, but they're low now, and the federal government is pushing money out there, and the county is maybe looking for projects, and there may be more TIPS money. The Safe Routes or Complete Streets with the state, they may have a lot of money, and so we just want to get in line. We want to push any projects that we have to get in line. The worst that can happen is that they say no, or they ask us to revise it. But I think Carla has a good point that we have things around town that we want to get done in terms of safer crosswalks, or better lighting on crosswalks, or improvements to the bike path that do links. And I just think we have an expert with Laura Robertson here, and we have some town grant writer that we just need to start applying. We start asking and start applying. And I think that's a good point. Thank you, Carla.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how that funding trickles down because, well, one, if it gets approved, hopefully it would. But like that type of funding is, if it's federally funded, it is probably actually going to trickle down right through the CDTC. Yeah, so I mean, they'll put out, solicitations and stuff, and it's good to have projects ready to go if we know that funding's coming because it'll be a long process and it'll take years to implement it. So that's cool. It starts to change like the trajectory of what types of infrastructure projects get funded. So that's cool.
Okay. We're going to go soon, Laura. Anything else on Grand Boulevard? I mean, we had that brief discussion. Is there another 30 seconds on that? Just that project the county would do new
They
site?
all got submitted. They were all submitted and received by, that is a federally funded program that was the solicitations went to the CDTC. But there's some reason that they can't evaluate those proposals for a couple months. They say it, but I couldn't repeat it accurately. So we won't have results from that for quite a few months before we know whether or not any of those are funded.
Okay.
But it's awesome that they got submitted anyway.
Well, one of the things, Carla, at least on some of the specific things that came out on your question where neighbors identified they wanted somewhere, or even as people look at the map or they have an idea about something that we want to do, I mean, we should get our ideas together, prioritize what we're interested in, and ask the town write grants to try and get them. I mean, the town board would be relying on us to, what are some pedestrian and bike safety improvements and things we can do in the town? And I think we should make those recommendations. So it's not like Santa Claus has arrived, but it's we know there's federal money that's on the way, and we want to pick some projects, define them, and apply for the money. And that's my view. Okay. Well, I want to get going here and thank everyone for coming today. Thanks for your input on the wayfinding. Thanks for your input on the goals. Thanks for your input on the utility trail corridors and lots of other projects that we have here. And we'll reconvene on February the 18th and go some more. And we'll try to send out a couple things for folks to work on between now and the 18th. So thank you all for coming today. I'll entertain a motion. I move that we adjourn, and I'll entertain a second, I guess. Paulina is a second. So thank you all for coming today, and we'll see you on February 18th. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, bye-bye.